talk about. Mentioned that we had some technical difficulties yesterday, and that these wines are, because I always thought, before I started my wine enthusiast job, that red wines were only good. I guess we're live now, but we're only good like that first day, and then I realized actually they're often better day, if not almost always better day two. Really, we can talk about that. All right, let's see here. We are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance virtual tasting with some of the superstars from this great appellation in Santa Barbara County. If you tried to join us last night, I apologize that we had to reschedule due to some technical difficulties, which we won't get into, but it was fun trying to get back going. So luckily we didn't really start going live, so no one got to see us foible around with the internet. But here we are today. I am Matt Kettmann. I'm a journalist. I'm a senior editor at the Santa Barbara Independent, where I've been for 20 plus years, writing about wine for quite a bit of that time. I'm also a contributing editor for Wine Enthusiast magazine, where I review about 200 wines a month from the Central Coast, and a good chunk of those are from Santa Barbara County. Our two guests today are wines that I review with some regularity. We have Dan Kessler from Kessker-Haak Vineyard in the Santa Rita Hills. He owns his vineyard and his winery. And then we have Matt Brady, the winemaker for SAMsARA Winery, which is actually now based in Goleta, about 5 minutes from my house, which is great. And Matt sources from vineyards all around the county, including Kessler-Haak. So the wines we're going to try tonight are a 2006 Kessler-Haak Chardonnays, which we're going to start with. Then we're going to jump to the SAMsARA 2017 Kessler-Haak Pinot Noir. We'll follow that up with Dan's Ohana 2016 Pinot Noir from his vineyard. And then for something completely different at the end, one of my favorite styles of wine, Cool Climate Syrah, this one being SAMsARA's from Zodovich Vineyard, also in the Santa Rita Hills. So for those who haven't seen this before, we've done actually dozens of these. We started in June, and we've featured about more than 30 winemakers and wine growers on this. Since then, it's been, I think, a good way to keep you all in touch with us while you can't necessarily visit us directly. So let's dive in here. I'm going to pour some of Dan's the Kessler-Haak Chardonnay 2016. Dan, let's hear your story about how you got into owning a vineyard. What you did before? What did you do before? You did not start as a vineyard. You weren't born into a vineyard. So what was your life like before you found vines?
I have a master's in electrical engineering from MIT, and I started out in high-tech semiconductor fabrication, so building the chips for integrated circuits and doing kind of their leading edge technology, helping the front end development guys doing the fastest chips, whatever, kind of thing. And ended up moving up to California, work on a startup with my boss, and doing the same thing but in a different semiconductor material. And then from there, I went to managing what they call foundries in Asia, who made our chips for us. We did the designs and helped them do the processing and debug it and all that stuff. So from there, I started taking courses at UC Davis online, and got to really good professors out there. And the same time I started making wine. We had a local home winemakers group down in the valley, and learned my mistakes, which is not necessarily a bad way to go as long as you don't repeat them. And
you living in San Fernando Valley at that point, or
yeah,
Valley?
Yeah. And a little bit of a hit there for wine, beer, and cheese shops. Been around for a long time. And then I got interested in growing grapes, so I started a couple hundred vines in our backyard, and had a lot of fun doing that, and kind of decided I liked doing that better than I liked what I was doing. So I kind of made a 5-year plan to kind of come up with a place to have a vineyard and make wine. And Within the first year, we wanted to do it in Santa Rita Hills. We came up here all the time, and we wanted to do particularly. And within a year, we found a site that was everything that we had put in our kind of mindset to have in terms of a vineyard and a winery, and had a house on the property and things like that. And that's why we jumped in. Put the vineyard in 2005. First production date was 2009. We started the winery in 2009, so our first harvest vintage was 2009. Currently, I'm making wine as an alternate proprietor with Loring Wine Company, and using their facility to make my wine. Prior to that, I was working with LaFon Winery, helping Bruce McGuire make wines for red wines for Santa Barbara Winery and LaFon Winery for 10 vintages or so.
Wow. And so when you came to the Santa Rita Hills, it had just been kind of named an appellation, officially named an appellation. It obviously had this huge momentum. What was it like to enter the region at that critical time in its history?
It's crazy. We knew there was a vineyard next door, so we said, okay, at least grapes will grow here. And we pulled in one day to go to the property where the vineyard was in. We met Wes and his wife at the property next door, and Wine Spectator had just put out an article, I think in the summer, it was like June or something like that, that featured the Santa Rita Hills with Wes leaning on his fence. And I told my wife, I said, I think we probably picked the right place.
Right. And so how big is your vineyard? How many acres?
It's a 40-acre property. 30 of it is planted, which is pretty much all of it. And we grow Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. We've expanded our Chardonnay more recently. Grows real well on our vineyard. And I do a little Syrah. We have a couple acres of Syrah and a little bit of Riesling. And that's it right now. But we may go some other things too.
Right. And you sell some of it, obviously, to SAMsARA. How much do you sell versus how much you make?
I use about 10 acres of the 30 acres. So the other 20 I sell to primarily people in the Santa Barbara County area. I do have one customer up north.
Yeah, great. So tell us about this Chardonnay. This is your do you make one Chardonnay a year? How many Chardonnays a year do you make?
One Chardonnay a year, pretty much, usually. I don't have that much fruit. The rest of it I sell to other people. But this is a hillside Chardonnay, east facing slope, clones 76 and 95 if you're into the Dijon stuff. And it's a 50-50 blend, all barrel fermented, barrel aged, 100% ML, a little lees stirring after ML is complete, and to give it just a little extra weight in the mouth, and that's about it.
Yeah. Have you changed your Chardonnay making over the vintages that you've been? Your first vintage was 09. Now you're up to. You've done 11, 12 vintages now. Have you changed your style at all, or has it been pretty consistent the whole way through?
I dabbled with some stainless steel Chardonnay and in 2014, and it's taken until now for it to really take off as far as people's palates go. Couldn't take off right away. I kind of came back to what I like to do, which is barrel fermented, because we have such good acidity on our property. And I played around a little bit with lees stirring and some barrels and things like that year to year.
Right. And is your wife pretty involved as well? I remember when we talked for the first time like a decade ago, she was pretty involved in a lot of the accounting part of the thing.
Yeah, she helped on the non-farming side, more the winery side. She does some of our marketing and fixes all the stuff I write that is bad and all that good stuff.
Right. And how many cases a year are you making overall?
I'm about 2,200 cases a year right now.
And you sell it a lot through you're in your tasting room right now, and where's that?
That is on the edge of Lompoc, next door to the Home Depot. It's corner of Highway 246 and Route 1, right there at the traffic light. We got a big blue building with a mural on it. Real pretty site. Got nice views, and that's where we sell our wine.
Great. All right. And how many Chardonnay customers? Do you have a lot of Chardonnay customers then? Is that about the same amount as Pinot and Chardonnay?
You mean in terms of volume?
I guess so, yeah.
In terms of volume, I'm about 3 times the volume of Chardonnay and Pinot and some other.
Great. All right, it's a tasty wine, and it's a 2016, so it's got a couple years under its belt, and it's tasting quite good right now. So, thanks for sharing that. Matt Brady, SAMsARA. Let's talk about you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Just enjoying Dan's Chardonnay. We actually get a little Chardonnay from Kessler-Haak as well, so it's some fruit that I love and love working with.
Tell us about how'd you get into wine? Where are you from? How'd you get into wine and all that?
Well, I started out as a wine drinker. I went to college here in Santa Barbara at UCSB. Grew up in the San Diego area, and once I got up here to Santa Barbara, I kind of discovered that we had a wine region, and I developed a love for wine, and kind of thought that it would be a fun part-time job to get a job at a winery, learn a little bit more about it, and then I'd have a cool, interesting story to tell someday. And didn't really envision a wine career coming out of it. But once I started working at Jaffers in 2005 when I was still going to school at UCSB, and really got bit by the bug. I did that first harvest in 2005, got offered a full-time job after that, and ended up spending 12 vintages at Jaffers, kind of, clicking up along the ladder. Not a big ladder, we were a small winery, but ended up making the wine along with Craig Jaffers, and I squeezed.
And you weren't making. I mean, you're making mostly Syrah and Rhônes there, right? You're not making a lot of Pinot at that point.
Correct. Yeah, we were all Rhône focused. We did have a Pinot side project, so I got to make Pinot Noir. I made a Pinot Noir for myself in 2009, and then I make some Pinot Noir with my old colleague and good friend Dave Yates. So I had a little bit of experience with Pinot, no experience with Chardonnay prior to SAMsARA. I took over the winemaking in 2017 from Chad Melville at SAMsARA when Chad sold the winery to Joan and Dave Skutek, who were longtime friends and customers of mine at Jaffers and big supporters of the SAMsARA brand. So pretty exciting for me to step into a role here at SAMsARA where I really believed in the wine style and was, really committed to kind of doing that and, doing what I can to tweak it and hopefully make it better over the years.
And I love that. I mean, there was a very serendipitous thing that happened with you had left Jaffers, Chad was selling SAMsARA, you knew Joan and Dave through things, and you were on a beach in Thailand when you got a text message from Chad saying, hey, maybe we have something set up here?
That was it, yeah. I mean, and Chad had even said prior to me taking that trip, he's like, hey man, when you're on a beach in Bali and you're thinking about SAMsARA, and if it feels good, just keep thinking about it. And sure enough, I got the call and started the conversation with Joan and Dave. And it's been really tremendous. I mean, we were able to maintain, some of the core vineyards that Chad had worked with, like Kessler-Haak, and continue working there. And also, add some really cool vineyards to our lineup. And we started a Chardonnay program in 2017. Those were the first white wines that SAMsARA had made. And that's really,
I was there.
You were there for bin number one.
With my son, with bin number one coming in, watching the grapes go into the machines there.
Into the press.
So into the press. So what your first year at SAMsARA was what again?
It was 2017. So
okay.
in 2018 we moved to Goleta. And
okay.
we found a warehouse out in Goleta, and Kettmann Winery had made the move to Goleta, and they were the first ones, and we were on their tails, and we've been so stoked and excited about being in Goleta, and we got to build out this existing warehouse to be a winery, which was really cool and exciting for me to participate in that. And it's turned out that this is a great place to make wine. We're just a quick drive down from Santa Rita down the 101. It's really cool here. We're close to the beach. Of course, the facility is all temperature controlled and all that, but it's just been a really nice place to make wine, and it's been great opening the tasting room here. We're closed right now, but opening the tasting room here and kind of building some local support here in Goleta.
And the city of Goleta was really supportive of you guys, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think between submitting our plans and moving in, it was about 2 months, and there was a build out that happened in between. So the pace that we made it all happen was impressive by standard, and yeah, the city was just really awesome, kind of working with us and being sensitive to our timing needs. We couldn't tell the grapes to hang out on the vines and finish the project. So, I think we got our occupancy permit like the day before we brought in that Sodavit Chardonnay in 2018. So, kind of down to the wire, but we made it work, and we're continuing to do so. It's been a good run so far.
Great. So tell us about this Pinot Noir and your guys' style of winemaking with red wines. It's you go with a savory style. It's a little lighter, yet still tons of structure. So what are you guys trying to do at SAMsARA? I mean, you guys really stand out against a lot of other wines in the similar categories. So what are you guys doing differently?
Yeah, the philosophy is really cool. I think our focus is, generally speaking, more on savory and spicy than sweet and fruity. One of my favorite things to say is Santa Barbara is a good place to be a grape. We've got a really long growing season. We get lots of hang time. It's cool climate, so we get great natural acidity. So really, all the qualifications are there for greatness, and so there's never any shortage of fruit profile. And I think for me and for the SAMsARA vision, having those savory and spicy elements, textural elements really help us maximize complexity and make the wines more interesting. So we're doing a lot of whole cluster fermentation. We're picking on the early side, really to maximize that natural acidity and to maximize balance. But also the whole cluster component will kind of shift this might be a little too geeky, but shift our pHs up a little. So we can get away with picking a little earlier, knowing that the pHs are going to move a little, and the stems actually kind of help with that kind of desired mouthfeel and texture quality. We want that sort of seamless mouth coating, extra weight that you get on palate. And it's a little counterintuitive that stem inclusion will help you achieve that, but it does. It adds that extra layer and just gives you that.
And what you're saying with the pH is that it balances off that otherwise maybe too ripping acidity that you're getting from picking so early. Yeah,
the acid's still there, I guess, but because the pH is a little higher, the wine just feels softer. And I find that it really helps us with that kind of mouth coating texture that we really like. So I think you get a lot of, we're picking in a more balanced ballpark, I guess. But we want the wines to be powerful. And I think the way we achieve that is really, whole cluster fermentation plays a big role. We do longer macerations as well, but we're really trying to kind of beef up that mid palate and just that kind of extra fat that you get with the texture and the mouthfeel. And
so how many vineyards do you guys source from in a given vintage, like say 2019 or 2020?
It's about a dozen. So a lot of vineyard sources. Fortunately for us, many of them are are longtime sources, and the new additions, we hope they will be longtime sources as well. So there's a lot of continuity. But for us, for a small brand, it's been really cool to kind of cherry pick from what we think are the really top vineyards in Santa Rita Hills in Santa Barbara County. And, you get some similar expressions throughout Santa Rita and throughout the county, but, I think the vineyards that we work with are all really distinct in their own way, and that's kind of what makes it work.
And you're making Chard, you're making a little Rosé, you're making Pinot, obviously, we're drinking it, Syrah, Grenache, what else?
That's the core, but we have been, it's been fun the last couple of years, kind of doing some one-offs, I guess, is what we can call them. And I guess that's an advantage to being a small winery. You can really play around a little. And I'm grateful that we all have the same philosophy on that here at SAMsARA, and that Joan and Dave kind of support that as well, because it's a lot of fun for me as a winemaker to, this year, for instance, in 2020, we made some Gamay from Kessker-Haak Vineyard, and that was the first time. It's the first time I've made that varietal. And the first time SAMsARA has as well. We also got some.
I love Gamay. Big fan.
I'm so stoked on it. And the stuff at Kessker-Haak is great. It's organic and really nice fruit. So I was pretty pumped. It's really good. We also did some Claret Blanche from 2020 from Watch Hill Vineyard, and we tasted a few of those. There's a few producers. Actually, Matt, you kind of helped me with this. Producers in Paso making Claret, and that seemed like
we did a little tasting in my driveway a while back.
Yeah. I mean, it was a COVID tasting, and we're still in it.
I have one more actually that just arrived. If you want to try another one of these days, so
I'll take you up on that, and you should come over and try what we made, because I'm stoked on it. It came in really nice. So anyhow, it's fun. I think moving forward, we'll always have some new and interesting things that we do, mostly for our wine club and for the tasting room. And that keeps it fun for our club members and our customers, and keeps it fun for me and for our team, being able to try new stuff and stretch in new directions and all that.
Right. Another thing I want to talk about is, because of yesterday's kind of technical difficulties, the wines we're drinking were opened yesterday. At least the ones I'm drinking were open yesterday. The Chardonnay goes in the fridge. So, or fridge, for those in the crowd that don't know as much about it, it's a low to no oxygen environment. So there's not going to be a lot of changing that's happening in a fridge, which means that the fridge is a good place to store your red wines too, if you don't plan on drinking them once open for a day or so. But what I've become fascinated with, so I've been with Wine Enthusiast since 2014. And before that point, I drank plenty of wine, but I always was under this impression that red wine was only good on day one, and day two it was a totally, different and poor affair. And now having so many bottles of wine open into the second day all the time, and retasting them, almost all of them all the time the second day, I have to say that for good wine, for well-made wines, almost across the board, day two is as good, if not better, than day one. And I'm wondering, both of you guys, your thoughts on that. I mean, Matt, we can start with you, and then we can move to Dan, because we're going to taste this wine next. So, Matt, what's your drinking window for a new bottle of wine, I guess?
I take is basically the same as yours. For me, when a wine tastes better on day two, it's an indication that it was really well made. And of course, like vintage and how old it is plays a big role in that. But for these young wines, when they show, and they're not even that young, 16 and 17, they've got a couple of years on them. But I think across the board, both Dan's wines and my wines, to me, are showing better on day two. And that's always, for me, an indication that, they haven't been overhandled, they haven't been overly exposed to oxygen, and that there's a lot of longevity left in these wines, because it takes them a day of being open to pop. It probably will take, additional years for that same change to kind of happen in the bottle, for when you're popping the cork, they're in that sweet spot. So, I mean, I think across the board, these wines all have a lot of life left in them, and it's fun tasting them 2 days in a row, and always cool when they taste better the second day, for sure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's actually a really, I mean, I've come to expect it so much that it's almost, for me, a better indication of wines that were poorly made when they don't hold up the second day, especially if they're within the same vintage range. And a lot of ones, even ones that kind of can seem like really exuberant sometimes on the front end, day one, like, and I leave wines open for at least an hour typically before I taste them. So there's time. It's not like I'm popping them and trying them, but sometimes I'll taste wines on day two that have just kind of completely fallen apart, and you're like, whoa, okay. Like this is either like a drink now kind of wine, or maybe don't drink this wine. I don't know. So, Dan, what are your thoughts on that? As we move into your Ohana 2016 Kessker-Haak Santa Rita Hills Pinot Noir.
Well, this wine is kind of in the opposite direction from the wine that Matt talked about, all from the same vineyard. But this is a little bit on the lighter side, and it's called Ohana because it's a little bit of fruit from every one of our blocks. We have 7 different Pinot Noir clones, and we every year the blend comes out a little bit differently because it depends on how much clones we've used for their vineyard to make that same vintage. But it's a little lighter drinker. It's a little drippy at the tannins, a little bit in the front, and medium finish thing. Not a big fruit bomb or anything like that. And as far as
do you use much oak? Do you use much oak on your Pinots or no?
This is all aged in barrels, about 30% new oak.
Mm-hmm.
And year to year, that because of the blend and because of the new barrels that I use, I'm still experimenting with barrels, even after all these years, to come up with the ones I like the best. It's a little bit different every year, but got the same character to it.
And you make a number.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead. And you make a number of different Pinots a year, right?
I do. I typically will do a 2A alone, single clone, no new oak. I will do a Pommard clone. I really like that. Typically more like 50% new oak. One other wine that might be some sort of a blend between 115, 667, and 114. You never know. So, and then we also do sparkling wine. When we bought the site, we were looking for a place that was a little bit cooler, and we have a very cool site on the vineyard. This morning it was 26 in the vineyard. It's
putting those vines into dormancy, right? I mean, that's what you want.
Yeah, they're not gonna wake up anytime soon. But we do some sparkling wine. We've played around with some sparkling rosé, a kind of a brut rosé, straight brut cuvée, which is Pinot and Chardonnay, and kind of an extra brut cuvée. Which on the winemaker side, when I share it with winemakers and we kind of try to figure out what we like for sugar, we always go extra dry. It's like, I don't think that's going to sell, but it's been a pretty people really like it. So maybe that's the direction to go.
Well, and Santa Rita Hills have been pretty renowned as a place, at least a New World place to grow sparkling wine because you can hold, it's such a long growing season and the acidity stays so high for so long, and it seems quite ideal. So how many years have you been doing that, Dan?
Since 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're all vintage bottled. There's not like a non-vintage style.
They're vintage bottled. I don't do it the champagne style. Just can't afford to do it that way right now.
Yeah. Wow, great. And you said the Ohana is a blend of a lot of different parts of the vineyard and a lot of different clones.
It's kind of our family of clones. We're family owned and operated. One of my sons, who's now a detective, but he's done a lot of marketing for us. And one of my daughters is got a fine arts degree that I paid for. So I'm getting my money's worth back. There's all our label design and marketing people and things like that. And then I was involved in the marketing too. And so we're kind of family owned and operated, and also it's the family of Pinot, and Ohana just seemed like the right word. We've always loved Hawaii and olive.
Great, yeah. Well, it's a tasty wine, and doing, I think, really, I mean, it's a year older than the SAMsARA, but it's still holding up really well with a lot of structure to it, and really nice, rich flavors to it as well. So tasty. All right, Matt, let's switch to something completely different now.
Let's do it.
Let's check out the SAMsARA Zodovich Vineyard Syrah. Well, and before we do that, Dan, you grow Syrah too. You mentioned that, right?
I do. Yeah, since 2013.
And do you make most of that, or you sell it, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I try to use about an acre's worth, which is about 5 tons. We've done some Syrah rosés, and we make a straight Syrah. And I sourced some petite Syrah from Thompson Valley or Thompson Vineyard, and we do a little blending of that with the Syrah.
Yeah. Great. And then you said Riesling too. You have a little Riesling?
I do. Yeah, I love dry Rieslings. I think they're definitely underrated here, but I can understand why, because they really can't afford to farm them and make any money with them, right? So these are cuttings from old vines that LaFond had. I started making Riesling with them, and I really liked that particular fruit, and they had no clue where it came from. Pierre LaFond planted it, and I don't know, he got it in a suitcase or something. I don't know where he got it, but he had no clue. And they were taking the vines out, so I took cuttings from them and took about 1/3 of an acre out of my Pinot and grafted it over to Riesling.
And as your vineyard, you feel like it's pretty set now, or are you down for more experimentation and new stuff?
I'm down for more experimentation, because I see, some clones I may have overplanted, and in terms of their popularity and things like that. And I'm actually talking with a guy right now to maybe graft over an acre of Gamay, and we'll see how that grows.
I say do it. I actually just Pence makes a Gamay Noir sparkling wine, which is quite fantastic too. So you combine a couple different things there.
Oh yeah.
All right, Matt, let's talk cool climate Syrah. So, I mean, SAMsARA, when I thought of SAMsARA in the olden days, 10 years ago, like I kind of thought, all I thought was like cool climate Syrah. I mean, I knew they made Pinot and everything, but that was, they were really putting their neck far out there when it came to cool climate Syrah. So, and Jaffers makes fantastic Syrah still. But it's cooler climate from cooler climate vineyards, but it doesn't necessarily go so far in expressing those full cool climate characteristics all the time, right? So it's a little bit more kind of in the middle sometimes. So what was your experience going from Jaffers to SAMsARA when it comes to cool climate Syrah?
Well, I think the cool climate Syrah part of the SAMsARA program is really exciting, and I think for a lot of our customers and club members, and particularly people who've drank the wine and followed the brand for a long time, the Syrah is kind of like the spooky part of what we do. I think you could make a case that it's maybe what we do best. But, maybe that's not the right way to say it. Maybe it's not what we do best. It's just the fact that cool climate Syrah is so awesome. And there's not a lot of it. And it's really, cool stuff, literally and figuratively. The transition from Jaffers to SAMsARA, we had done some things at Jaffers that I was really passionate about, like at Larner Vineyard, for instance, out in Ballard Canyon. We always did a lot of these were my favorite barrels of the year every year. And I remember being in France in 2016 and having a conversation with the winemaker, telling them how those were our favorite barrels every year. And he's like, oh, why don't you do more of them? Why do you only do a couple? And I was like, I don't know. You know, it's the perception that maybe people won't like it. But, you know, at SAMsARA, we really have kind of dived into that, where we're committed to that style. And it's maybe not for everybody, because it is more kind of spice driven and there's not as much, you know, upfront fruit. Although I think the 17 Zodovich is kind of firing on all levels right now, for me. You know, but I think I'm lucky to have found a home where my personal, you know, views on Syrah and how cool it is and how cool Climate Syrah best reaches its potential is, you know, kind of shared by everybody on the team. So yeah, I mean, it's been awesome, and we get to work with some really stellar Syrah sites in Santa Rita Hills. We've gotten some Colson Canyon fruit as well, which is, you know, outside of Santa Rita, but you know, still super cold at night, great acidity, and a little different.
And a crazy vineyard, almost like a moonscape, and above the Santa Maria Valley. Very, very interesting, weird spot. Joey Tensley kind of owns and manages.
No, it's really cool going out there. I mean, I've been out there on my own before where there's nobody around, and I'm like, is it cool walking around out here?
You might get
is it mountain
lion, bear. You might get a crazy pterodactyl come in and take you out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've even walked back to the truck with like the clippers in my arm or in my hand. Fend off a mountain lion attack, but it's awesome out there, and you know, it kind of speaks to our commitment to really working with those unique sites that really can stand alone and have some distinction and stand apart from each other. So yeah, it's been really cool. I mean, I fell in love with Syrah over my years at Jaffers, and I'd say at this stage in my winemaking life and career, you know, it's kind of shifted into this kind of cool climate focus where the wines are just really, you know, spicy and complex, and you know, for me, exactly what I like to drink. So it's nice being able to, you know, put your money where your mouth is, and wines that you believe in.
And how do you? I mean, I assume SAMsARA fans love it, but what is your sense of when you go out into the market, when that was a thing and will one day be a thing again, I think, when you go out there, like, do people get Cool Climate Syrah, or is it somehow confusing?
I think people really like it. I think more often than not, you know, the proof's in the pudding. And just like when you eat a meal at a restaurant, back when that was the thing, you know if it's good or not, you know if you like it or not, and that's all it comes down to. And when you get these Cool Climate Syrahs in the glass for people, it might be totally new and something that they haven't really been exposed to before. But I'd say 9 times out of 10, people really like it. And you know, another thing that I've said probably too many times is the middle of the road is a boring place to be. And you know, our goal is to make really distinctive wines. And, you know, in the way that we think maximizes their potential. And, you know, we want it to be a yummy, delicious, tasty glass of wine that everybody can enjoy. But, you know, being able to make it to that next level where there's some complexity and some potential for evolution over time and longevity, you know, I think those things are really exciting for me, exciting for all of us at SAMsARA, and things that our region lends itself to. I mean, we're making world-class wines out of our stellar vineyards here in Santa Barbara County, and you know, it's cool putting these down for 10 years or more and seeing what they turn into, and you know, really trying to maximize that potential.
And what do you think? I mean, are you seeing more vineyards of Syrah be planted in the Santa Rita Hills and in cool climate regions? I mean, I feel like it's happening a little bit more. I don't know if if the sales are up, but it seems like people that are interested in wine are exploring that a little bit more and more.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I don't know if there's any data to support that, but I also feel that way, that, the interest in Cool Climate Syrah is more than it used to be, and kind of the recognition that it's special stuff is out there. And I don't know that I've seen a lot of new Syrah plantings go in Santa Rita, but I would bet the farm that in the next 5 years, that's something that we'll see. And not just Syrah, but just more diversity in general in terms of what's getting planted.
Is that because the Pinot market is pretty flush right now, right? I mean, there's a lot of Pinot out there, and it's still really expensive for fruit, which is someone's going to give at some point, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that this year the county didn't really have to deal with that because the impact of the fires throughout California and the West Coast really brought a lot of out-of-county interest into Santa Barbara. So a lot of the fruit in Santa Barbara got sold out of the county this year. So there probably was a ton of Pinot Noir out there that wasn't sold, and then the fires came along and changed that. But I think moving forward, there's going to be more interest in other varietals, and I think that's true just generally speaking. But for us at SAMsARA, when I was out at Bent Rock Vineyard this year with Ruben, who farms it, Ruben the Grape Whisperer, he almost doesn't need an introduction because his fame has reached that level. But he was pointing out at a part of the ranch that was unplanted at Bent Rock and said, hey, that's where they're going to plant a bunch of Syrah and Grenache and cool stuff. And, it just made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I was like, oh, yeah, like, where do I sign, Because
there's some data. There's data. You have data.
Yeah, well, it's a gleam in Ruben's eye at this point.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen over the next, 5 or 10 years, and it'll be really cool because I think there's, the success of our region has really been defined by Pinot Noir, and that's kind of laid the groundwork for success in other varietals. I mean, I think for the rest of my career, Chardonnay, I think, is going to really kind of rise up to be the superstar of Santa Rita, because I think there's tremendous potential for Chardonnay. And, even though there's a lot of acreage out there, it's just a small slice of the pie compared to Pinot Noir. And
I've heard a lot of very smart winemakers, such as yourself and others, named Matt occasionally, say they think that Chardonnay might be, if you fast forward 100 years, because wine is a very slow-moving situation over time. And you fast forward 100 years, the Santa Rita Hills might be known for Chardonnay more than perhaps anything else. It's not the simplest thing to say, but
no, I believe that. I totally agree, and I don't want to take away from any of the Cool Climate Syrah limelight, but I mean, Chardonnay is gonna be the star, I think, and I don't know that Cool Climate Syrah will ever have the kind of the market share that Pinot Noir and Chardonnay have out there in the wine drinking world, but it reminds me of, I'm not going to quote this exactly, so if any of my buddies are watching, I'm sorry, but it reminds me of something that Jerry Garcia said about the Grateful Dead, where, it's not for everybody, but the people who like it really like it. It's like black licorice. Some people hate it, but the people who dig it are really into it. And that's how I feel about Cool Climate Syrah. It might not have the broad appeal where it's going to be floor stacked at a grocery store anytime soon, but I think the people that dig it can really dive deep into it, because there's just so much complexity and so much there. And in Santa Rita, we've got some great vineyards that we're working with now, but it'll be really cool to see how that evolves over time. And we'll
and in bottle, as you alluded to. I mean, Cool Climate Syrah ages like like no other, basically. You know, all these elements kind of coalesce over time. So
yeah, exactly. Well, we'll drink some old stuff when we're old.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, this is a nice. This is our last Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance tasting of 2020. Hopefully, 2021 is a better year than this one. But it's been a fun experience doing these tastings and meeting with winemakers and showcasing them and letting the rest of the world kind of meet you guys. And Dan's battery died, apparently. Matt, I don't know if you were seeing the comments, but that's what he cut out. But anyway, we were happy to have Dan Kessler from Kessker-Haak Vineyard on. Oh, wait.
They can't get me off there that easily. I've got a phone.
All right, Dan. Well, I don't know if you were listening to us. If you have anything to add, please feel free. But otherwise, I was going to start to roll with a outro of sorts. But Dan Kessler, thank you for coming on and telling us about your vineyard and your winemaking career, and maybe giving some hope to people who want to buy some of their own land in the Santa Rita Hills one of these days and start up their own brand. And Matt Brady, thank you from SAMsARA. Great tasting this Cool Climate Syrah and this Kessker-Haak Pinot with you. And to the rest of you watching us, hopefully we'll see you in 2021 if we keep this series alive, which we probably will. And please check out the Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance website to make sure you know what's coming up, so you can buy some wines and taste with us. And with that, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year. See you all in 2021, I guess.
Cheers.
See you later.
Cheers.
All right. See you, Dan.